They say that life is hard, that there's not enough to go around, and that it's not spiritual to want money. And repeatedly, they say to themselves, I'm not good enough. I say that life is filled with possibilities. Abundance is literally all around us. And you being here is more than enough. My name is Arabelle, and my assignment in this life is to question the belief systems, to learn the secrets that are hidden out in the open, and to show others what's possible. Each episode, I bring you a guest or a message that will make you question your choices, challenge your views, dig deep into your beliefs, and wake you up to your truth. Join us as we walk through this thing called life. You ready? Let's do this. Hey Adam, thank you so much for being on the Awakened Leaders interview series. Here we are, and I'm really excited how our conversation will unfold. And we were just talking, you're in Canada, I'm in Burma, we're literally on the other side of the world, and we're going to be having a very interesting chat today. So I'm really excited, and welcome.
Yeah, thank you for having me. Thank you for putting up with my crazy schedule as we've gotten this organized, and I'm sure it's all perfect timing, and we'll have some amazing stuff to talk about.
And I know that you just recently came back from the jungle as well, so I would love to talk a lot more about that in a little bit as well. But before we actually dive into any conversation, I have a question for you. So if I were to ask people around you to describe you in 3 words, what would they say?
I would say that most people would describe me as highly intelligent, committed, and I think a lot of people would describe me as fearless.
Yeah, I mean, I can totally see that you're fearless. And in fact, it's amazing that you brought that word up, because that's one of the questions that I want to ask. I have known your work for quite a while now, and I've known you through specifically your spoken word talent, or the magic that you weave when you do that. But really, what got me to really follow your journey very closely was when you decided to consciously uncouple with your a very long-term girlfriend, and to be honest, when I first heard that, like many people as well, it triggered me because that's something that I knew that I have done that before, but I told myself that it was so hard I would never ever do that again. And then I was actually in a similar phase in my life as well, and when that happened, of course I got triggered, and I was like, wow, that is so brave and courageous, and at the same time, that's crazy, for a lot of people as well. But it's not, So if you'd like to take us through that journey a little bit, if you can, what really got you to make that decision, and what it's like? It's been almost a year now, I think.
Yeah, just about.
Yeah.
I was in a monogamous committed relationship with a woman for 9.5 years. And in a very short period of time, we experienced just a slight disconnect around, there was just a situation that arose that we weren't seeing eye to eye on. And generally, when that had happened in the past, we would work through it, we would find our alignment, and we'd keep going. That's, having some form of disconnect is very normal in long-term relationships. At various stages, you will have things that you don't agree on. And during this one, however, there was a big change. There was a big shift, because we'd been doing a lot of personal development work, specifically somatic sexual healing work. I was dealing with some trauma from sexual abuse, and it was impacting our relationship, and we started working on that. And for the first time in my life, I was feeling incredibly trusting of my own emotional experience. One of the things that had happened from being abused at the age of 5 was I developed this unconscious belief that I couldn't trust myself, that there was something wrong with me. And so in my relationship previously, I would always carry that in the back of my mind. And so now during this experience together, was in my power. I was very much feeling like this was not coming from my wounding. This was coming from a place of strength. And she felt the exact same way on her end, in her opinion. And that disconnect had us going, wait, what's going on here? What's actually going on? And so at that stage, we decided to turn to the plants and go into a plant medicine ceremony, which has been a big part of both of our journeys. And making that decision to go into a plant medicine ceremony specifically to find out what's going on between us, what's actually happening. And when we did that, we both separately received the same message, which was it was time to walk away from the relationship and the safety that we had cultivated and curated, and see what we were actually here to do, see more of ourselves, see what it meant to be single on this planet right now, and not have the safety net maybe of a relationship. And so that very night, the night of that ceremony, we recorded a podcast on my podcast, The Deep Dive, and we released it to the world, officially separating after 9.5 years.
So you just decided then and there, right, straight after you come out of the ceremony?
Yeah, we had the kind of initial what's going on, is there something wrong, that sort of thing. Then in the ceremony, it looked like receiving this, like meditating. We're both meditating, eyes closed, and just receiving this very clear, intuitive, like voice in the head saying, you're being asked to leave the relationship. And both of us, I opened my eyes and I looked at her, and I could tell it was just like the same message. And I just broke down. I broke down in tears, and I was sobbing and begging and pleading with the universe or God or whatever word, to encapsulate whatever that voice in the head is, and saying, please ask something else. Don't ask this of me. And it was unwavering. It was a knowing. And my belief, and why I think some people would describe me as fearless in a way, is if I know I'm going to do something, if it's a very firm knowing, I don't wait, I don't hesitate, because it's inevitable at that point. And so that night, it was the decision to make it official. And we were out of the house. We had moved out all of our stuff and physically separated within 2 weeks. After 9.5 years together, all of our stuff, everything. And so that was the beginning, because the next day I was meditating and, crying and what am I doing? And got another kind of intuitive voice in the head saying to film everything. And that message caused me to get some cameras around me and some people, and we started filming everything. We had no idea what we were filming, and that would eventually go on to become The Art of Choosing Love, which is my YouTube show.
Wow. So what was the journey like from there leading up to this point, in short, mainly specifically around dealing with that and coming out of that and stepping into a new life from an emotional point of view?
Well, I would say that the biggest thing that I want to convey to people is that I didn't know why I needed to break up with my ex-girlfriend, and I will say it was mutual. We both agreed that we had received this message. So, but I didn't understand the why. When we were separating, I knew that it was to leave the safety net of the relationship and to more deeply understand myself. However, beyond that, which is just a concept, I didn't know the details. I had no idea. There wasn't anything technically wrong. We weren't fighting. I wasn't unhappy. And that's what a lot of people couldn't understand. They said, you're happy. You found what everyone is searching for. And it was triggering for a lot of people who have been searching for love and who have been single for a long time, or who have had relationships and been broken up with, and they were in love. It was triggering to people who thought we were throwing something away. And So there were people who were actually angry with us for breaking up. While I'm in like one of the saddest times of my life, I have people angry with me for making this decision. And so I didn't know why, but over the last year of this experience, it's become really clear, which is there were so many aspects of my deep unconscious mind and beliefs that were never needing to be looked at while in relationship because I felt safe. And I had thought that I had developed a sense of safety in the world, just moving through the world. But the truth is, I had developed a sense of safety in the relationship. And leaving that relationship, it was amazing to see what came out of that, including, for example, when people don't feel safe, one of the most common things that happens is they try to elicit a lot of control. They try and create routines and schedules and focus and fill their days and create a control. And that helps people sometimes feel like they're more safe, because the more that they can control, the safer they feel.
Yeah.
And I had developed the opposite. In my life, I was living my life intuitively, following my inner guidance and letting go of needing it to be logical and needing to have a sense of control. And I thought that's how I was. But I came to find out that I was that way primarily because I felt safe to do that while in relationship. And so once I left the relationship, all of a sudden, I was trying to control so many different aspects of my life. And that's just one example of some of the things that I noticed. I thought I was past, or I developed a healthy relationship in certain areas, only to realize I only developed those healthy relationships and those healthy characteristics when in that relationship, because I felt safe to do so. And so I've been developing over the last year, I've been developing those habits and those viewpoints and everything while being sovereign, being in my own energy.
Wow, that's really, really powerful. Because, the reason why I was asking, did you make that decision right after you came out of the ceremony or even a couple of days later? Because if you have probably heard of this, where, the messages that you receive in the medicine are very, very powerful. And it's really important for us to take some time to really integrate before we make any drastic major decisions, especially life decisions. And that's why I was curious to know what it's been like throughout this journey. Were there times, especially after you have physically separated from each other and you on your own journey, were there times where you actually doubted your decision, that did I make a mistake?
All the time.
Yeah.
Yeah. But the thing is, it was never at the deepest level. So what I mean by that is, when I doubted, I would sit in that. I meditate regularly. I went out into nature and I would just sit and I would journal and I would think about the doubt that I was having. Like, did I make a mistake?
Yeah.
Answer, like the deep knowing, was always there. This is the thing to do. And I think that doubt is can at times serve in the sense that it allows us, or it can motivate us to like double check our work, right? And not just in actual work like homework, but also in, let me check in and double check if this decision was right for me. And let me double check and make sure that this is still true for me. And that can be very valuable. And especially when people are developing a deep inner knowing that I'm talking about, that's not something that I always had. That's something that I developed. I think that our intuition is a skill that we can get better at utilizing. It's a tool set. And so as we develop that, the doubt early on is very loud. It's very, very loud. And then over time, as we develop that trust of our intuition and that deep inner knowing, the doubt becomes smaller and lighter. And then big decisions like the one to leave the relationship that doubt appears, and I can feel that the doubt is still not touching this knowing. The knowing is still there.
That is exactly the question that I want to ask, because I recently consciously uncoupled with my partner, and not many
Really?
people actually know about it. Yeah, and we actually have a 10-month-old son, and so right now I'm just traveling here and doing some events and stuff like that. We haven't physically separated yet because he's going to be traveling. I'm traveling, so we'll meet again in about 2 3 months time, and then we'll have more conversations. But at this point we have consciously uncoupled, and it is very uncomfortable, as you probably know. And what's more than uncomfortable is the comments from people around me. Yes, absolutely, they come from a place of love, but also their own fear, and not also understanding why, like, what is conscious uncoupling? Why do you even need to do that? Like, you guys are not fighting. You guys, like, everything's going good from the outside, and yeah, from the inside as well. Like, we're not fighting, we're not killing each other, we're not doing any of that. But like you said, for us specifically, we're out of alignment. We're not in sync, and we can. No, I don't need to go into details, but you kind of know what I'm saying. So it was a decision that we know that is perfect for us right now. So the question that I want to ask is, I know there's no such thing as right or wrong, but why do we think so much? Why do we go so deep? And why do we do these work that is actually very uncomfortable? And why do we not live like a certain group of people who, for them, ignorance is bliss, and they seem to be quite genuinely happy with their lives?
Hmm. Yeah, that's a really great question. I think that it's, you know, I think that the biggest thing is looking at what is happiness, right? What is happiness for you, for myself, for others? And in my mind, the whole point of all of this whole game of life that we're playing is to be happy. I believe that we chose on a soul level to come down here and have a human experience. And I don't believe that any of us would have chosen to have that experience with the intention of being unhappy. So no matter what other aspects we may have chosen to put into our experience, being happy seems to be the most basic goal that I can see of all of this. And I everyone's so different in what makes them happy. I think that the biggest thing for me is that what causes a lot, like my friends that I grew up with who are happy going and getting a burger and having a beer, and then driving fast cars around, and like that I grew up around friends who do that now, and there's nothing wrong with that. But when I look at that, I think, okay, that burger is actually factory farmed meat that is ruining the environment. It is just on a moral level, I can't consume that. And I'm not vegan, by the way. I just can't do the factory farmed meat. And then they're drinking the alcohol specifically to get drunk because they, for whatever reason, and then they're driving the fast cars, which is using up, like, they're getting like 12 miles to the gallon in a car that is, you know what I mean? Like, that's where my mind goes. So I'm thinking, could we do the exact same things in a more conscious way, in a way that isn't harming the planet at the same extent? It isn't,
Mm-hmm.
can we purchase the same? Can we purchase, you like nice clothes and things? Awesome. Can we purchase clothes that aren't made in a sweatshop, paying someone 10 cents an hour? Can we, um, can we switch over so that we are making the same choices, but just in a more conscious way? And the thing is, if we all started doing that, it's supply and demand. The corporations would
Mm-hmm.
adjust. You're seeing corporations adjust in their marketing. You're seeing it in their offerings. You're seeing it more and more often. And so I know that the corporations would follow. And so ignorance is bliss, maybe, but can you stay ignorant? Like once you've seen behind the curtain, you can't.
Yes. Yes.
So I think that's actually why so many people are often triggered by people like yourself and myself, because if they were to engage in the conversation with you and realize something about their life or the world that they didn't know before, that they can't unlearn and they can't unsee, it may ruin their ignorance is bliss.
Mm.
That's why so many people, that's why, there are laws in the United States where you can't bring a camera into a factory farm. That's actually illegal. You can go to prison for filming a factory farm. Why? Because they don't want the public to know what really goes on. Because if the public were
Wow.
to actually know, they would stop purchasing it, or they would create a whole big issue about it. And so, there, to me, I don't know what the answer is around ignorance and bliss. I think that my whole goal is not to get people to change their behavior. My whole goal is to give people an awareness so
Mm.
that they make their choices from a more conscious place. That's
Mm.
why I do what I do, because otherwise I'm just as dogmatic and trying to impose my will as any other organization or religion or political party or whatever. I want people to tell me, oh yeah, I'm eating this meat. I know that it's factory farmed. I've seen the footage and I'm choosing it because this reason. I'm choosing to drive this car because of this reason, even though I know what's going on with the climate and what's going on. Okay, great. You're making that conscious decision. Fine. But most
Mm.
people don't actually know. They have no
Mm.
idea. They don't, and I believe that awareness gives us choice. And so therefore they
Yes.
don't have a choice. They don't
Yeah.
actually have a choice. They're just taking action blindly. And for whatever reason, and I think you're the same way, I it eats away at me thinking that I'm just playing out my unconscious belief patterns that I didn't choose. I don't accept
Mm.
that doesn't make me happy at all. I like making the decision, you know what, I'm going to eat this meat today, or I'm going to be vegan for 3 months or whatever, and make those choices for myself and know the reasons why. That's what makes me happy.
I think you just touched on a very, very important topic. That especially here as well, coming back here to Burma has been very healing and eye-opening for me to see so many things that has changed and not changed since I have left the country. And like I was traveling the past 3 days, that's why when you messaged me I couldn't reply. Like whenever we travel on the side of the road, on like in little creeks and streams, we see so many plastic bottles and what do you call them? Styrofoam, like
Yep.
those packets. They're just everywhere. And it's not something that I take pride of, but I'm not somebody who's very much interested in environmental things. Although I don't throw away things on the street. If I see trash on the road, I pick it up, I put it in the rubbish bin. But I'm not an activist per se, like some people I know. But seeing that, it really made me feel sad. And then I actually thought of exactly what you just said. You know what Alexi and Preston says, how you do anything is how you do everything, right? So I look
Mhm.
at everything in that sense, and it's just one aspect showing that people don't really think that much. So when they don't think, they don't actually think about the repercussion of their actions. So for me personally, in my journey, I am quite known for being super extreme in every decision that I make. And ever since young, I'm a risk taker. I'm not really afraid of falling down because I had this attitude that that's how I learned to get back up, and what doesn't kill you makes you stronger, kind of thing. But what I have learned throughout my journey is, and when I go into medicine journeys, they're brutal, and I'm like, why is it brutal every single time? Because there's a part of me that always wants something the most extreme. Just show me, like I can take
Yeah.
it. And all of my life experiences are pretty much like that. And so now, at this point, I'm starting to realize that, you know what, ignorance is actually not bliss. But then going extreme like me is actually not a good thing either. So what is it? And I'm starting to learn that, maybe it's actually being in the middle, being, having that sort of like balance to learn how to live in a way where I'm not consumed by the need to grow or the need to want to learn or the need to whatever, but also not getting carried away by the ignorance is bliss kind of thing. So my question to you is, I know that you're someone who's very deep, and and that's why you come up with all these crazy magical things that you whatever you come up with, they're just amazing. Like I really talk about you in a very like highly way that go check out Adam. He's amazing. Just your creativity is just amazing. But I can imagine that comes from a place of somewhere deep. So my question to you is, how do you balance that when you feel down? I can imagine you would probably feel really down. That's like, normally people who are deep, that's where they go. And when they're happy and yeah, they really experience that joy and happiness and love. How do you balance that?
Well, thank you for the kind words. I appreciate hearing that reflection. Yeah, I actually wrote an Instagram post right before I went into the jungles of Peru to work with the Shipibo tribe for a couple weeks. And one of the things I said, I was on a phone call and I asked this woman, would you describe me as a happy person? And they said, happy wouldn't be like the first word I'd use to describe you. And I said, what would be the first word? And they said, deep. And I went, yeah, I've always been deep and I've sometimes been happy. And that that is something that I am shifting, because like you, what I realized is that I had attached my growth to how like hard it was. We have this saying in personal development, the breakdown to the breakthrough. And I think that having operated by that for most of my life, I can fully see that pattern and I can understand why so many people are attached to that pattern. But what I've realized is that the breakdown to the breakthrough, no pain, no gain, strive and grind, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger, all of these sayings that we are ingrained with from a young age, they're survival techniques. They're survival mechanisms that we have created to deal with the pain that is an inevitable part of life. You will experience some level of heartache. You will experience some level of hardship. Now, the difference, the thing that I am shifting in and I am in the process of and have been working towards is letting go of the idea that the breakdown is a necessary component of the breakthrough. If we have a breakdown and we say, you know what, I'm going to turn this into a breakthrough, that's amazing. That is resilience. That is, the glass is half full. That is the silver lining. That is a lens through which positive, happy people view life. And it is also becoming a literal umbilical cord that is tethering us to our shadow, because so many of us have walked through this planet thinking that we need the breakdown to have the breakthrough, thinking that we need to have the pain in order to have the joy. And my belief is actually, I don't want to necessarily sit in the balance like you're talking about. I like riding the extreme. I like pushing the edges and the boundaries of my own consciousness and my own lifestyle. And what is the boundary that I'm pushing? Am I pushing it with a lens of I'm pushing until I have a breakdown because then I'm going to have a breakthrough? Or am I pushing as how happy can I be? How much joy can I have? How much fun can I have? And the thing is, people have asked me, well, isn't that selfish to just think about how much fun and play you can have in this life? I said, listen, as I have more fun, all the parts of me, all the shadow, wounded, traumatized parts that have been a part of my experience that are not a match are going to rise to the surface, because there's a part of all of us that often rises to the surface and says, you're having too much fun. Life can't be this. Life can't be this good. And those parts will rise to the surface. And when they do, we can look at them and we can say, where did
Mm.
this come from? Oh, okay. And bring it into wholeness and integrate it and move it through and let it go. And we don't need to dive into our shadow to find that. We don't have to be attached to a breakdown. We'll find that as we're having so much fun that it just can't live in our system anymore. It has to go. And so
Mhm.
that's my new thing is, no, it's not about living in balance. It's about letting go of the idea that pushing our edges needs to be in a way that leads to a breakdown.
I absolutely love this. Thank you so much. I think that was more for me than people who are listening to this interview. Because, like right now, as we speak, I'm organizing one of the biggest events that I've ever done. And I've done a lot of work shifting some of my core beliefs that were sort of ingrained growing up, because that's like passed down from generations to generations, pretty much what you just said, no pain, no gain, breakdown before breakthrough, all that kind of stuff, just in our own version. And so I've been shifting all of that. And, one of the biggest things, and that's like the biggest breakthrough and reflection that I'm seeing is I've always had this idea that, I can't ask help from other people. That means I'm weak. I've got to do it myself. So I've done that all my life, but I've shifted it recently. And now organizing this event, I'm just amazed by the people who are helping me. But then, so I'm like, amazing, everything's flowing. I just had this idea about the event. It's all happening. Everybody's happy and everybody's helping. It's all in flow. But there has to be a but, because there is a but right now. And it's just so hard at the moment. It's not there yet. So I'm like changing my mind every single day, still shifting, having faith. I'm thinking, what am I co-creating here? What am I doing here? That if it's me, what can I shift in myself to start seeing this shift? And that's what I wanted to ask you. A lot of people in my community and in our community are starting to understand that, when you shift, your external reality starts to shift. Doesn't necessarily mean that they will be exactly how you want it. Doesn't necessarily mean that when I shift, my boyfriend will shift. It just means that he will probably no longer be your boyfriend anymore. I don't know, or his job might not be your job anymore. But things do shift. But that thought and that concept is amazing, and I have seen it work for me so many times. But I also see the other side of that concept where people start to blame themselves because they now have this concept and idea that everything's happening in my field and showing up in my field because of my vibration or because of my shitty thoughts or good thoughts. But now, if things are not changing, then I must be really shitty. I can't do anything about that. I suck, and then they just go into that rabbit hole. What do you say to that?
Oh, I fully subscribe to the belief that we are creating our reality. More accurately, we're co-creating our reality with the universe, and the universe being a feedback loop for our unconscious and our conscious. So um, the the question you have around like, well, what about those certain beliefs, right? Like certain beliefs that we might hold, those are definitely showing up in our experience. So if I have a belief I'm not smart enough, I'm not good enough, people don't care about what I have to say, that will impact every single thought and action that I have or take, no matter what, because it's in the unconscious. And so anything that I consciously do first filters through that unconscious mind. And so it will make its way in there. That means that the copy I write will have it in there somehow. The Facebook lives or Instagram lives that I do, the words that I speak will carry that frequency in it in some way, shape, or form. And so what is personal development really? Personal development is the continual up leveling of our frequencies and our vibrations of our unconscious mind through the systematic process of seeing the reality around us as a feedback loop and feedback mechanism to tell us where these limiting beliefs actually are. And so personal development is exploring what that is, rather than just saying, oh, that happened to me, there's nothing I could have done to change it, there's nothing different about it. It's, let me take this as an opportunity to grow. And often people look at the immediate short-term results and they get stuck there instead of looking at the greater picture, which is you, using this as a hypothetical example, you may be calling in an event that's 5 times as large as the one that you're talking about right now. And in order to be a match to that, you called in this experience so you could have the stuff come up, so you could look at it and like work through it and shift your unconscious mind. So now you're actually a match to the event that's more important to you, which is the one that's 5 times as big that you're going to throw next year.
I love that. And I also love exactly what you just said. You know, personal development is more about exploring. And as you're explaining that, I straight away went back to my 6-year-old self here in my parents' house. They used to work, so I'm alone during daytime. And I would explore the back roads, the suburbs, and the next suburb, and the next suburb. And when my parents finished work, we would sit down at dinner table and they would say, what did you do today? And I was like, oh, by the way, I just ate this noodle from this noodle shop. I didn't pay for it because I didn't have money. Can you go pay for it? And they're like, which one? And I'm like, oh, that's 2 suburbs away. And they would be really surprised that I was exploring the whole neighborhood without them, you know, because it's like a no here. And that just reminded me of, yeah, I'm an explorer. And that just brings me back to the topic that we were talking about, I guess. There are types of people who want to explore, and there are types of people who just want to stay in one place. And I guess people who want to stay in one place, as long as they're happy with their choices in their life, that's totally fine. And there are people who want to explore. Some people explore countries, some people explore the inner world. And I guess we are people like that, sort of.
Yeah, one of the most common questions or reservations that I've had from people who have been interested in coaching with me or taking one of my programs is said, if I start coaching with you, am I going to have to leave my job? Like, well, do you want to leave your job? And they said, no. I said, okay, then no. And then, you know, someone else is like, will I have to leave my marriage? Well, do you want to leave your marriage? He said, kinda. Like, well, then maybe, I don't know. It's
Yeah.
one of those things where um, there are people out there who know that if they begin the personal development journey and they really start to get honest with themselves, there may be some decisions on the horizon that they will be forced to make, or at the very least become very aware that they are running from making it. And so the ignorance is bliss thing, yes, to some extent. If like I think that willful ignorance is not bliss. I think that choosing ignorance because for some reason is, it's usually chosen because of fear. It's usually chosen because, well, if I watch that documentary on factory farming, I'm not going to be able to eat at all the restaurants that I love so much. Okay, that might be true. And deep down, you know that you're making a choice that
Mm,
might be out of your integrity, that might be out of alignment, and you're making that. But in their mind, as long as they don't know, they're actually not making a decision that's out of integrity. And so personal development, I admire anyone who's on that journey. i
mm,
i feel I feel inspired. You know, my mother is, you know, just retired, she's in her 60s, and she's on a personal development journey and reading books and exploring her, you know, her own mind and what she believes and who she is. And that's inspiring to me, especially
yeah.
at that age, to continue to dive in and say, what if everything that I know about myself, or all these things that I think about who I am, what if they're not actually empirically true? What if I learn something about like these perceived flaws, I'm going to have to do something about them. And a lot of people would rather not. That's totally fine if that's what they choose to do, as long as they are not harming other people. That's my biggest thing. If your actions are causing harm to other people or this planet, I am going to probably find some way to bring some awareness into your experience. And
Yeah.
I don't want people to act exactly. It would be so boring to be on this planet if everyone did exactly as I said, or exactly what I did. But I do want people to really be consciously aware about why they're doing the things that they're doing, and choosing to act in a way that isn't causing harm to others.
That's amazing. I want to change gears a little bit and ask you a little bit more about the art of choosing love. Do you want to talk a little bit about that? I mean, I've watched quite a few episodes in there. You know, for me personally, it's amazing how much emotions that you can evoke in people, and specifically me, watching that and really make me think. And you know, your art. I remember in one of your spoken word events, you said art is what's gonna go through that barrier of, you know, is it even possible? I don't really remember what you said, but it goes straight to your heart and touches people's heart. And you're doing that with that show and with a lot of things that you do. But yeah, if you want to talk a little bit about that, that would be amazing.
Yeah. Thank you for watching. First of all, it's been a labor of love, and I appreciate the fact that you watch it. I believe that art is a technology. I believe that art has the ability to bypass the logical defense mechanisms of the human mind and enter straight to the heart, is straight to the emotions. And personal development will teach you that lasting change happens at an emotional level. It's when we feel something really powerfully that we start to create the belief structures. That's why so many of our beliefs form when we're younger, because we just feel so much. So I utilize art in a variety of ways, whether it's through my spoken word poetry or my music, or whether it's through filmmaking. I want to utilize art, and the art of choosing love is the result of, touring my spoken word poetry show, Permission to Think Freely. I took that on tour, and I had so many people coming up to me and saying, thank you so much, because I'd been hearing about why it was so important to choose love and to love myself, but I didn't even know what that meant. And I realized that there's so many messages that are going out in the life coaching, new age spirituality, personal development space. And people are hearing the same messages, but they don't actually know what that looks like in their own life. That, like, what does it mean to love yourself more? What does that actually mean? What does that look like in your life? What does it mean to choose love? Well, it's not simple. It's not always easy, and it's not always simple. Sometimes you don't know what the loving choice actually is. And so the art of choosing love, the whole point of it for me is to show people how I'm doing it. It's to show people, there's a lot of times you'll see an episode where I go, I don't know what the loving choice is here. I don't actually know. I'm going to do the best of my ability, because instead of being on some mountaintop telling you to do as I say, I'm actually just going to show you what I do and hope that it's valuable for you, so that you can see someone has my level of just awareness and all my years in diving deep into myself, all the years of plant medicine ceremonies, all the money I've spent on workshops and coaches. I've taken that and developed a level of consciousness that I take through the world. And now I just want to shine a light of awareness on that and share it with people so that they can make those decisions for themselves.
Beautiful. Yeah, I will put a link to your show as well in the show notes so that people can go and check it out if they haven't seen it yet.
Yeah, theartofchoosinglove.com.
Absolutely. And yeah, everybody who's listening and watching this, you should definitely go and check it out. It's amazing. But before we go, I just want to touch on a little bit about your experience in the jungle recently. What was it like? What was your biggest takeaway? And I understand that sometimes it's really hard to put it into words, and you might still be integrating all of that. But whatever we can share, I am so curious to find that.
Yeah, I went down to Peru and I worked with the Shipibo tribe. I sat in 8 ayahuasca ceremonies and dieted with the Noya Rao tree, which is the tree of light, which is the tree that many believe the Avatar movies are based off of. And it was some really deep work. And the biggest takeaway, there were a couple, but one of the biggest ones was just realizing how deep rooted a belief had been, which was that life is unsafe and scary. That I faced off with the fact that I have been walking through this world with that belief for a number of reasons. One, obviously being sexually abused at the age of 5 was a big one. Then I grew up in a household where I was disciplined with like belts. And so there was a level of fear in my own house of being physically harmed if I did something wrong. And then having my heart broken by first women that I started dating who cheated on me. Like these sorts of experiences that were so traumatic at the time, that I developed this belief system. And that belief system that life is scary and unsafe created a lens so that as I was walking through the world, things like I'm waiting for the worst case scenario. Even when things are really good, it's like, well, something will go wrong eventually. And rewriting that story, I'm actively rewriting that story and choosing something different for myself. And that required letting go of a lot of the pain that I had been carrying and a lot of the grief and the sadness, including from the breakup. They're allowing myself to really grieve and mourn the loss of my safety, the loss of what I thought to be the mother of my children and the love of my life, like letting that go so that I could write a new story. It was like formatting a hard drive so I could start over. And so I'm very excited to write a new narrative to my own life.
Yeah, wow. That feeling of not being safe is very common in a lot of people, and I think that is also confirmed as we go out into the world, because many people have that experience, and we look around and we actually confirm with each other on a very subconscious layer, and then it just gets more and more concrete every as we grow older. I think because as you said that, I resonate with that as well, because that's something that I'm working through also, because I was also sexually molested when I was 8. So I've been literally rewiring and healing and letting go and rewriting how I want my future to look like, how I want to show up, and all these stories that I have attached over the years, and they become layered after layer after layer after layer, and it's just like peeling it away patiently. But thank you so much, Adam. I would love to talk to you like for the next 6 hours, but it's I would not do that. So thank you so much for coming on to this podcast and sharing a piece of your wisdom and really inspiring people. And hopefully this will, the whole intention of this podcast is to challenge people's beliefs and question their choices. And I hope that our conversation has sparked that a little bit in our listeners. Viewpoint in their lives. But if people want to connect with you, where can they find you?
Well, thank you first for just having me on. It's been a lovely conversation. I'm glad we made it work and that the data lasted long enough to hold this conversation. For anyone who's interested in going deeper with me into the journey and what I'm learning along the way, I have a lot of online real estate. You can find my podcast. It's called The Deep Dive with Adam Roa. That's on iTunes, SoundCloud, and adamroa.com. And adamroa.com is a nice hub. And then Facebook, Instagram at adam.roa for Instagram, and then theartofchoosinglove.com and YouTube.
Amazing. I will put all those links in the show notes. But for now, Adam, thank you so much. You're literally, you're sent from the cosmic, whatever place. You're meant to be here on this earth. Thank you for being who you are. Thank you for all that you do. You have not only touched and changed and shifted a lot of my thinking, but I know that people who are going to listen to this, you've already done that. So thank you so much.